Luke Barnatt, welcome to the Man of War podcast, man. It is an honor to have you on, brother.
I appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me. A little bit of a drive down from Brickell in Miami, but worth it. Beautiful
Awesome.
place.
So thank you for being here. I know that your time is very valuable, and I appreciate the fact that you're giving us a little bit of it. We're gonna dive into a few things throughout this conversation, but I've been following you for a while. And I love your content. I think you're just a straight up, authentic guy. And I think that you really exhibit masculinity in a way that it's very, I don't want to say it's humble, but you're just very, very chill in your approach. But you have this side to you that is, you're very direct and you're very honest. And I love that. So, and you've done some great things with your life. And I love to want to really dig in and talk about that. So, for those who don't know who you are, I'm going to give you the mic here. If you can introduce yourself just a little bit, man.
Okay, I'll give it a go. I'm what I like to call an expressive entrepreneur who got sidetracked by mixed martial arts. And I found myself in The Ultimate Fighter season 17. Went on to have a career in the UFC. I was a mixed martial artist for about 18 years, give or take. And following that, I took the passion of combat and I put it into entrepreneurship and have been working my arse off for the last 5 or 6 years to try and create something, and I'm still working my arse off to try and create something like everyone else. But and that's where I'm at the moment. I do various things that I'm sure we'll talk about, but I just have got a passion for living, really, and enjoying myself and pushing myself in every facet of life.
I love that, man. I love that. So, I go back in time. We were just talking about this. I mean, you mentioned that you lived in Spain, and I love to talk to people that come from Europe, right? Because one of the things, the first thing you said was they don't have a lot of the amenities there that they have here, but there's such a beauty to it that I don't think that we have that here in the United States that much. And I was raised for a good portion of my life in Spain. And it's just a different culture, a different way of life. Everything here is so just 100 miles an hour all the time. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that, you get out there, the beach is nearby. It's just a different vibe. So that's where you are now in your life. So I'm interested in knowing, first and foremost, coming up, right? I mean, because a lot of people see you now, they're like, you're successful, you're a driven guy, you travel all over, but they don't remember all the things that got you here, the things that defined you along the way. So you were born and raised where?
I was born in Barking, which is a part of Essex, but just outside London. So I was raised in London till I was about 10, and then I moved to Essex, which is a suburb of London. It's about an hour and a half away. Yep. And then from there, I moved around quite a lot. I saw something from you that was talking about how men need to recreate themselves. And it made me think, funnily enough, but I believe most robust entrepreneurs that I have met, they've moved away from home and they haven't stayed in their little bubble that they lived in, and that's something I had to do multiple times. So like I said, till 10 I was in London, and then I moved to Essex, and when I was 10 years old and I moved to, it's like moving to the country. It's not quite that, but from the big city to a suburb. I was picked on a little bit for being like a weird kid because I was like a Londoner and very, very different. And then from that, I ended up moving to Peterborough and Cambridge. And then from Cambridge, went to California. And then when I came back from California, I went to Malaga. Then from Malaga, I moved down to a place called Marbella, which is right in the southern coast. Beautiful place.
Beautiful place.
So I've moved around quite a lot. But every time I meet successful entrepreneurial people now, it's like they've had to go through that themselves as well, a coming of age or a change of lifestyle or something in it, and a lot of it comes from moving out your comfort zone, getting away from your parents, getting away from your friends group, and being an individual and being able to stand on your own 2 feet. And I think I did that multiple times, and I'm continuing to do that. But it really started for me. I mean, what defined me in my life for most of it was fighting. And that's came from no real anger or pain. A lot of people think mixed martial arts, especially MMA and UFC and cage fighting, comes from like a painful place. For me, I just found it and fell in love with it. So that was me. I grew up in London. I lived in a like a big townhouse, like a 3-story townhouse in the middle of Islington. It was a absolute shithole when I was there, but now it's been gentrified and it's very nice. And I think the house I lived in now is worth like 4 million quid, which when I had it, it was not worth that sort of money.
Times have changed, though.
They've definitely changed. But yeah, so it was I don't want to call it a tough upbringing, because it definitely wasn't at all in any way for me. I was very, very fortunate. But London, when I was growing up there, it wasn't the nicest place.
So tell me a little bit about your martial arts, right? What age did you start, and what was the first martial art that you ever started training in?
Like I said, when I made the transfer from London to Essex, I was a bit bullied and a bit of an outsider, and didn't get on with some kids. So I started doing Taekwondo when I was about 12, I think, or 13. But I only got to a yellow belt or a yellow stripe or something like that. And I did the katas or the katas, however you say it. I remember 4-directional punch is the first one you learn in Taekwondo, and it's all about the up block and down block, and you move in the square. But that was like my first taste of martial arts. And I have got, and I don't mean this in a horrible way, I got a fantastic father. My dad's an amazing guy, but he worked away a hell of a lot. And I think that drew me to martial arts because of the discipline, of the sensei kind of style, especially back then with Taekwondo. I had a guy called Gordon Slater and Kevin Ebbs, which were two guys that I worked with, and them directing me and taking an interest in me as a young kid. I definitely gravitated towards that. I didn't perform particularly well in Taekwondo, and it didn't last very long, but it's mainly because my parents were so against it. So my mother is a Jehovah's Witness, so she's very, very, very against violence and against martial arts and everything else. So yeah, I started with Taekwondo very, very briefly. Then I moved away and I came back as a submission wrestler, which is very, very rare in the UK, because this was when I was living in Essex.
Yeah, it's that's rare.
Yeah, super rare. And it was a random gym that used to happen at my college. There was I didn't go to college, but it was in Chelmsford College where I went briefly, and it was in a squash court, if you know squash.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a squash court, they just put mats down, and it was just like 4 or 5 guys, like at my time, fully grown men that would go and do submission wrestling, and I wanted to be a part of it because a friend of mine, or not a friend at that point, but a guy that I knew was doing it, and I kind of looked up to him. So I wanted to train with these like killers. But I was a kid. I was about 16 at this point when I tried to get back into it, and I'd have to go to the local pub and play pool with my friend Rory, drink a few beers to get the courage to go to do submission wrestling with these animals. And it obviously.
So you get a little liquid courage to go out there and train. Yeah,
liquid courage, but it's not a performance-enhancing drug. Let's put it that way. So it didn't particularly help me. But to start with, to get into the gym, that's what I needed, and that's where it all started for me.
Very cool, very cool. Then from there, after that type of wrestling, when did you start diving into actually MMA?
Well, it come off the back of that. So basically, the guy who I looked up to and I wanted to train with is a guy called Jack Mason, who's had around 50 professional fights. At that time, I think he'd had like 10.
Right.
And he was a bouncer, a doorman, I don't know what you guys call it. And I ended up working with him on the doors when I was 17, 18. And I'm a giant, right? So I'm like 2 meters tall, 6'6", big guy, but I was skinny like this when I was a kid, but like tall. In a suit, I looked the part, you know what I mean? Jack's 5'10", but built like a house,
tank,
like a tank, yeah. So, but I was always used to make jokes with him, like, bro, I'm just gonna hold your head like this. You're not gonna be able to touch me, da 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 da. And he's like, listen, bro, if you wanna have a go, come down the gym and we'll spar. And I was like, yeah, no problem. What a cocky little kid that didn't know anything. I did a bit of Taekwondo and a bit of submission wrestling, but I didn't know anything. And he trained at a place called the Tsunami Gym, which was in Cambridge. So Cambridge and Chelmsford are about an hour and a half away from each other. So he would drive every Tuesday and Thursday, an hour and a half to train and an hour and a half back, because 20 years ago, mixed martial arts didn't exist. Like it wasn't a big deal in the UK specifically and especially. So we had to really move around for training. And I accompanied him to drive up to Tsunami Gym because I challenged him to spar. When I got there, there's a guy called Robbie Olivier who ended up being my coach. Robbie Olivier was a featherweight, which is, I'm just thinking pounds now. Featherweight's 145 pounds. and you know, and so in kilos, 66 kilos, I'm this big dude. He's 5'5", and Jack goes, "You can spar with this guy." And I was like, "I thought I'd come here to spar you." And I go and I spar with this guy, and he was a judo guy, and he hit me, basically threw me, armbarred me, beat the shit out of me, embarrassed me, like absolutely embarrassed me, and it was a very, very, very hard, humbling experience, like crazy difficult for me to deal with, because I was 18, had an ego, thought I was the man, all the rest of it, and I remember sitting, like driving an hour and a half back with Jack after I challenged him. He's a big guy. I challenged him to a fight, and Robbie beat the shit out of me, and I'm sitting there like, I'm sorry, you know, like you're getting told off by your dad, you know, but like for an hour. I don't think I spoke for a good 45 minutes. And that was the moment where I was like, I cannot walk around this earth knowing that there's a 5'5", like 66 kilo guy that could just do that to me. Like, I need to learn how to defend myself. It hurt me to my soul.
So it was a very powerful experience looking back now, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Like, probably the defining moment of my life, because I got a great dad, and no hate towards him in any way. My dad's a soft guy. He's a photographer. He's taught me so much about life in different ways. But when it comes to being a man, I learned most of it from the gym. And this is kind of my mission now in life. We're trying to grow a platform and everything else, and being able to speak. I want to be that guy for everyone else I never had I love my dad. Like, he's like my hero. But he didn't teach me how to be a man, you know? And I feel like I learned that through the gym, through the brotherhood I had at the gym.
It makes sense.
And I want to kind of be the big brother to a lot of people out there that have I'm not looking for people that don't have good relationships with their dad or anything like that. They have good relationships with their family, everything, but they're searching for someone to push them a little bit, right? And I think now, in this world we live in now, it's more prevalent than ever that the young men are struggling in so many different ways. And I learned so much from there's 3 guys, John McGuire, Robbie Olivier, who I just named, and Jack Mason. These 3 guys in the gym every single day, in the form of fighting, in the form of combat. But you learn so much about life through these experiences. And we spoke about martial arts before. So I want to try and spread those lessons across to as many people as possible, and help as many people as possible who feel lost, who feel like they've got no confidence. I had all these issues. And now I'm, like you said, you look on my Instagram, or I'm this big guy traveling all over the world. I'm a little kid inside, you know what I mean? A soft guy. But I built up this experience, and I can stand in front of 10,000 people and talk, and I can do these things that people just can't even think about. You know? I mean, I can stand in front of 20,000 people and have a cage fight. It's another part of it. But all of that confidence comes from layering and effort and time and energy put into something to make you feel like you can achieve things in life. You know, so
So the process of MMA, you think then it defined you, it helped you become the man that you are today?
Without a doubt. Like, the process is so unbelievably challenging, and I think people, and all combat sports, you know, I make a few jibs and jabs at other sports. There's a reel I put on Instagram and laughing at boxers, calling them lazy. Boxers aren't lazy, but compared to mixed martial arts, I mean, you mentioned judo. Judo is one of the toughest martial arts. As a kid, if you've got a kid, your kid should do judo, because it doesn't take any head damage. He learns how to use his body, throw. Judo is one of the toughest martial arts there is. And my guys that coached me, Robbie and everything else, they were judo guys. And judo guys have this special, like, manipulation of balance. I don't even know how to explain it.
The leverage and balance,
It's unbelievable. So we call it judo hips. So if you grab someone and you're like, oh, fuck, you know, it's just going to be hard work. So, but the discipline through martial arts that you learn, and the technique, and I think the most important thing, which sounds so, to me it sounds so obvious, and probably to you as well, is the self-evaluation. When you, again, take judo as an example. You go into a judo class, you learn a judo throw, you then have to learn it over and 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 over again. And then the coach comes and goes, no, you need to put your hand here. And you go, oh, well, I've been putting my hand here. So you have to think about how you make changes to your technique. And most men walk through their lives never even evaluating anything they've ever done. And they just think, oh,
that's a great point.
Life just happens. No. You have to. So the first thing that when I had my first fight, you watch the fight back. And when you watch the fight back, you go, that was shit, that was shit, that was shit. Oh, that was all right, that was shit, that was shit. So then you know how you get better.
Yeah.
And it's such a basic, simple thing, but learning and understanding that they call it the I'm trying to think now what it's called, like the master circle, or I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the evaluation circle, where you want to know how to become a master at something. You master it by, again, like chipping away, right? So I can't remember the exact phrase, but that's what I learned from martial arts very, very early. And if you apply that across the whole of your life, even, I know I didn't really want to talk about women, but even like when you go on a date, you go on a first date, no one thinks, they think, oh, that bitch was stupid, or something like that. But no one thinks about how they act, how they stand, how they speak, how they, they don't evaluate their movements, where they say. I just was in a coffee shop, and I could tell these two guys were on, this guy and girl were on their first date, and they were sitting in the middle of the coffee shop on this like heightened bar, like turning to each other. Like, and I was like, it just looks awkward. Like I walked in, and was like, these two look awkward. Yeah. Pick a better table, bro. Yeah. Like just don't be dumb. Little things like that just make sense to me. But he will go away from that date. Hopefully it goes well for him. Who knows? But if it doesn't go well for him, he'll blame it on the girl. Like, oh, she was boring. Or no, bro. You sat in the most like right next to the line where everyone can hear you weird, talking. You're super weird. And just to making those small evaluations of where you sit, how you talk, how you walk, how you act. It's just so clear and obvious to me. But most guys out there, they just walk through life not even thinking they ever did anything wrong, and not evaluating their decisions, and it's because they maybe don't have a father or a sensei or someone who says, bro, don't do that, do this.
Without a doubt. So I want to come back to that topic, because I think it's a powerful topic, but I want to stay in the martial arts for just one moment more. What do you think is, well, let's just start off with, do you think there is a best martial art, quote unquote?
Depends what for. So martial arts, I mean, everyone should know, but martial art is basically what art you're taught as a country to go to war, right? So if you're talking about going to war, what's the best art to go to war? And it's going to have to be, you're going to have guns. So you're going to be thinking about when you're stripped from your weapon and you don't have a weapon, so it's going to be close combat. So in my opinion, knowing how to box when people have got guns doesn't really make sense, and that's in the UK. Our martial art is boxing. You go to Japan, I believe it's judo. You go to Korea, it's taekwondo. Like it depends on what country you go to. So if you're looking at going to war, for me, I think jiu-jitsu is going to be the most useful martial art, because you're not going to kickbox someone in the middle of when people are shooting. Yeah. But if you're in a room and you're coming into infiltrating a house, and you come into a room and someone grabs you from behind, then I think you need to know jiu-jitsu. If you're talking about competition-wise, like to compete in the UFC, then it's a very, very different conversation. And I think the most useful base, like to start, is always going to be wrestling, because you then dictate how the fight goes. There's obviously George St. Pierre's the perfect example of it. He's a bit older now. People maybe don't know him, but George St. Pierre was a fantastic wrestler, and he could decide if he wants to strike with the guy or if he wants to do jiu-jitsu with the guy. Now, fighting has developed to such a level where everyone's good at everything. Yeah. So before it'd be like, okay, I'm fighting this guy. He's got good jiu-jitsu, but he can't box. I'm going to keep it on the feet, and I'm going to box his head off. Now, he can do jiu-jitsu, he can box, he can wrestle, he can do everything. Yeah. So I think to stand out in martial arts, you need to be good at striking now. Like, I think that's the...
It's crazy how you say that, because it's been, I mean, I started following MMA from when it first started, like literally. Crazy you say that, because, all right, so my take on this, and I was in law enforcement for almost 20 years. I just retired 4 years ago. And the martial arts, where you would think, and they taught a lot of jiu-jitsu. I was a defensive tactics instructor. Jiu-jitsu is great. I think that kicking and boxing is great. Low line kicking, Muay Thai type of kicking, boxing. Learning how to strike. However, this is the way that I look at it. I don't know if there's necessarily any. When people ask me, and you made great points, because I believe everything is, what are you going to be using it for? When people ask me what's the best martial art, I say, look, I don't believe in the best martial art. I believe in the best martial artist, right? Like, how do you train? Are you dedicated? You see, when I came up, I love the tradition behind the martial arts too. The where it came from, the study, the philosophy. It wasn't just, doing the techniques. The techniques were great in competition. They were great. You were trained for competition. You would train for, combat. But for me, it was the tradition and the lineage. That's where I got so much from it. Now, nowadays, for example, when jiu-jitsu came on scene and MMA, I mean, anybody that knew jiu-jitsu or had studied jiu-jitsu, they would whip ass, right? Yeah. However, you started to see how all of a sudden now people started countering that in the MMA. And this probably started out, from what I remember, maybe about 8 to 10 years ago. You started seeing the trend where it's like, okay, well, no longer are the guys that are just jiu-jitsu players going out there and submitting everybody, So everything started to change, and how, and to me, that's like so cool, because you start seeing how people start building and they get stronger to combat others. So now, like what you said, like these guys that are up there, they're fucking great at everything, so you're fighting, they don't have any weaknesses. They're good at boxing, good at wrestling, good at jiu-jitsu, good at kicking. So in your professional fighting, so when you had to go up with guys like that, I mean, what was your mindset like when you were training? I mean, what were you trying to, because I'm thinking, how do you train for a fight like that? I mean, that these guys are pretty solid across the board. So what do? Try to be better than them at it? Or is it the timing game or the mindset game? Or, tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, for me, my strongest attribute was the mind when it comes to fighting, because I was never the most athletic. I was a weird size because I'm so tall. I was the tallest middleweight in the world, and I was massive for the weight class. But it definitely was my mindset. And when I came, the issues that I had and the mistakes that I made, and I talk more about mistakes than the things that I did good, because that's just the man that I am, but a lot of the time, I'll give you an example. I fought a guy called Mark Munoz in the Philippines. He wrecked me over 3 rounds, battered me. My training, I trained with a guy called Phil Davis, who's a very, very good wrestler. Mark Munoz is a very, very good wrestler. And I spent 3 months preparing for that fight, and all I did was wrestle, right? I became very, very good at stopping takedowns. I became very, very good, better at, if I got taken down, getting back up to my feet, dealing with the pressure of a wrestler, of a high level, very, very good wrestler. But I went into the gym. I trained in San Diego, a place called Alliance under Eric Del Fierro, fantastic team and great people. And I was actually just with Dominic Cruz this weekend, who was one of the bodies there as well. And I got battered every single day because I was so new to the way Americans trained and how it was. And I went to every single session. So every training session I attended, because I wanted to learn as much as possible. So I was training, and I was exhausted. And then I would spar with Phil Davis, who I think at the time was ranked 5th in the world at light heavyweight, and I was a middleweight, and he was incredible, and he battered me. So for 3 months I prepared for a fight against Mark Munoz, who was on the way out, he was his retirement fight. He had a great career, he's a great guy, but it was kind of there for me to win, you know what I mean? But I mentally prepared by just getting beaten up for 3 months. So I had and this is where I think a lot of the lessons that I've learned that I try and tell people about. I talk about this a lot. When you're training for an event or for a fight, you need to have 3 different tiers of experience. You need to have that guy that's better than you, that Phil Davis, that beats the shit out of you and makes you feel like you need to get better. You need to have that guy who you compete with, who's your level or around your level, or you start at the same time and you're competing and you're trying to become better. He's probably the closest to you, a very, very good friend. And then you need to teach others. And teaching others is actually how you become the best.
I love that.
Because I remember that's actually how I moved very, very rapidly through the ranks with mixed martial arts, because I started at Tsunami. After 6 months, I was teaching beginners, because I'll tell that story later, but I used to sleep in my gym and all that sort of stuff. And when I was teaching beginners, I'd be teaching them basics like side control, like positioning. And I'd say, you get the underhook here, you control this, shoulder pressure, and they would ask a question, and I'd be like, I don't know the answer to that. So I'd have to go away, work out the answer, come back and tell them. So I improved my technique. So the problem is you have those 3 tiers. So you have I call it a mentor, a peer, and a mentee. So you have those 3 tiers of competition. And you try your A game against your mentor. You try and beat the shit out of that guy, but you never can because he's leagues ahead of you. Then in the competition guy, you try your A and your B, you try and mess around, you have fun, sparring's good, and it's competitive. And then with your mentee, the guy you teach, you can whip him easy, so you try new things. So when you're training or sparring, you try the stuff that you're not good at yet, and you improve. The problem is for me, when I had the big fights, I was always fighting with the tier 1 guy, and I just got battered the whole time. And I never built confidence. I never built enjoyment. Every training session was hell. I went in there and I got battered, and I was like, okay, but I could feel I'm getting a little bit better. But I was only getting better at pressure. I was only getting better at defending. I wasn't playing my game. So I'm a 6'6" striker, really now, or I was going into a fight against Mark Munoz, who's an NCAA Division 1 wrestling champion. That's an American terminology. And all I did was try and wrestle with him. Because all I'd done in my camp was wrestle for 3 months, and he took me down 16 times in 3 rounds. I got up 16 times, but I never tried to punch the guy. I'd go up and I'd look at him and I'd be like, and he actually beat me on the feet because he'd throw big wild punches and I'd get hit because I wasn't training those things. I was training his things. So I've had positive experiences with training in that way, but when I got to that's one of the reasons I believe I never made it to the elite level, because I was training for my opponent. I wasn't training for myself.
Gotcha.
So I think having, again, lessons learned, having those 3 tiers, and you look at some of the big names now, everyone always uses Conde, so I'll talk about Conde. Conde never left his gym. He never went and trained at like anywhere else. He just trained with the local boys from Ireland that he knew, that he trained with, that he used to beat up most of the time. And he would, as he got better, he would bring in specialists and he would train with specialists, but day in, day out, he's just winning. So you have that winning feeling, that winning vibe, that I'm the man, I'm untouchable. And that's how you build that confidence. My confidence was, last time I sparred, I did 5 rounds and I lost every round and I got beat the shit out. So how can you have that going into a fight, you know? And before I left the UK, when I was in the UK, training at Tsunami, that's kind of the group that I had. They were better than me at certain things, but because I was younger, freak size, and I could put the martial arts together a little bit better, and I'd have great rounds with them, and I would feel good about myself, and I would feel the progression. But like last week, John Kimura'd me 5 times. This time he Kimura'd me 4 times. You know, like that's kind of, so I feel like I was getting better, even though they were still better than me. I could feel it. With Phil, I never felt like I got any better. I felt like he was leagues ahead of me. You know, so when it comes to mentality, that's the missing piece that I think I didn't understand. But on a positive scale, when I was fighting, I did a camp with Chael Sonnen, the 6-month camp with him, and it was a similar thing. So he's
a funny guy, that guy.
An amazing guy in so many different ways. Like I got so many great stories about Chael. He's a real great human being. But when I trained with him, it was the same. Like I would spar with him, and he's a wrestler again, take me down. I learned things, but I didn't really get anything out of it. On the mental side, talking to him, I learned so much. He taught me so much about life, about fighting, about whatever, just in the in-between moments when you sit there and you chit chat. But in that camp, there was also 5 other guys that were lower level than me, same level as me. So in that camp, I was getting the perfect training, because I'd go with Chael, I'd be excited because I'm with this star and all the rest of it. I'd try my best. I'd get beaten up, but I'd still enjoy it. Then I'd have a round with the guy I could beat, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So from that camp, I went into fight for my UFC debut, and I was pumped for the fight. Like I was couldn't wait. I was excited for it. And I think one of the phrases that I say is, if your purpose outweighs your pain, then you'll do anything to make it happen. So my purpose at that time in my life was to become the best martial artist I could be. And that's all I cared about. If you were a multi-millionaire that could change my life and I couldn't give a shit unless you knew something about mixed martial arts. If you could teach me how to defend a Kimura or anything better than I already knew, I would spend all day with you and talk to you, because I want to know. But yeah, my purpose was to become the best I could be. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So this journey, you did your pro time. Do you ever plan to go back?
I mean, definitely not now. I'm 30. I actually turned 37 this weekend, but so I'm young enough to compete and everything. I retired when I was 32. I definitely will never return to mixed martial arts. I might have a couple of boxing matches just for the thrill of it and a bit of fun. But yeah, no, I'm so far away from the physicality that I was 4 years ago.
All right. So what happened after that when you decided to walk away and say, you know what, this is it for me? Your life carried you down a different path. And talk to me about that path and where you are today.
Well, I don't want to sound like a hippie, but I kind of believe in the universe. So I believe in, if you speak to the universe will speak back. And if you project yourself properly and you put the energy in the right areas, it'll always come back to you. And I put all of my energy into mixed martial arts. Like I just said, I was tunnel vision. It's all I cared about until I fought a guy called Mehmet Khalidov. I fought him in Manchester in the main event of a company called ACB, which was a Russian-run organization that I used to work for and I used to fight for. This was my first fight with them. I got offered a contract to return to the UFC. I left the UFC after the Mark Munoz fight. I had 4 fights. I won them all by finish. I was offered a contract to return, and at the same time, I was offered a fight against Mehmet Khalidov. Mehmet Khalidov at the time was ranked 6th in the world at middleweight, and for me to go back to the UFC on this contract, I would have had to have 5 fights just to even get to that stage, right? So I was like, well, obviously I'm just going to beat Mehmet Khalidov and then go back to the UFC top 10 in the world, and I'll get paid the big bucks, you know what I mean? Trained my ass off for that fight. I had a fantastic camp. Everything went right except for the fight. Main event, 21 seconds, I got knocked out. First time I'd ever been knocked out, and again, it was that was probably the hardest moment of my life. And when that fight happened and that failure happened, that's when I should have retired, in my opinion. Looking back now, retrospectively, which is easy to do, right? But that shook me so badly, like my confidence and everything else. I carried on fighting for maybe another 6 years. And I had some good fights, had some good wins, had some good moments. I'd fought all over the world. I fought in Russia, I fought in Kazakhstan, I fought in Australia. I had great life experience, but I never really truly gave it 100% like I had before. I started a family, met my wife, got married. Like life took over. When you move into your 30s, things become a little bit more complicated, right? So I was kind of wondering at that point. After the Khalidov fight, I still was training. I was still training hard. I started a gym in Spain, and I was still focused, but nowhere like I was before. So I didn't really have any purpose. Like I said, I always talk about purpose. And then a few years down the line, I was kind of just doing what every fighter does. I ran a gym, and I was trying to do PTs and all that sort of stuff. And like I said at the beginning, when you said to introduce yourself, I believe I'm a creative entrepreneur who got sidelined by fighting, because when I was 16, 15, I was starting companies and I started a watch brand, and I've always been like into business. And even you go back on YouTube, there's a video, and it's funny, I'm young in this video, and I was sleeping on the floor in the gym. I actually had a bedroom in the gym at this point, and I was like, someone asked me, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'm going to go to UFC. I'm going to have a great career, and then afterwards I'm going to become a multi-millionaire and run companies. Like, it was always who I wanted to be, right? That was what I wanted for my life. And I laughed when I said it, but I meant it. And I was drifting because I didn't know the next step, and I was so super fortunate, again, I think with the universe. I met a friend of mine that I'd known for a very, very long time, and he was doing extremely well, and he sat me down and he gave me like this long talk about how my life that I've lived is 100 times what anyone else has ever been through, and how I have so many lessons to teach people, and because of fighting and because of what I've been through, and you don't, because I lived in such a bubble, and everyone I knew was a fighter. Every person I ever spoke to, all they cared about was martial arts. He was like, you don't understand how special using that word, but like how special you are and what you've gone through and what you can teach others and how valuable, not special, that's not the word he used because that's a bit gay, but he said how valuable you are. And that guy's name's Andrew Tate, and he was a good friend of mine and became a closer friend from this. He was on a supercar rally through Marbella where I lived, and he just hit me up randomly, and we had this conversation. It was like 2 hours of him basically like being my big brother and telling me to get on with my life. And from that moment onwards, I started working with him. I joined something called the War Room, which is his like online society. And I was exposed to so many individuals that were doing so many great things in business and in entrepreneurship and in life. And it kind of just opened the floodgates for my mind for different avenues that I could go down. And like I said, I was so focused on one avenue. I didn't know any of this shit. I was like a baby, you know. And I went to a dinner with them, and they were talking about. I always tell this story, but they were talking about funnels, and they were like, you know, how do you have your funnel set up and da da da. And I was like, guys, what's a funnel? And they were like, a sales funnel. And I was like, what's a sales funnel? Because I had no idea, you know, about how any of this stuff worked. And one of them took me to the side and explained everything to me. And I looked like an idiot, you know, because I was. Because
But you didn't have the knowledge at that time.
I didn't have any knowledge. And again, this is what I think is a superpower of mine, is I don't care. Like because I have the grounded confidence and knowing who I am, and I know who I am 100% because fighting has taught me that, because you get taken to the darkest, deepest, most disgusting places in the world. Some guy laughing at me because I don't know what sales funnel is doesn't affect me. You know what I mean? Some nerd on the internet writing a bad comment doesn't affect me. Like I know who I am. So, but because of that, my growth was so fast because I was like talking to everyone, learning all these things, you know, and I started putting together online products and doing, basically trying everything, which is something I talk about as well with young guys, because young guys are like, I don't know what to do. Just do everything. Because something will stick, something will happen, and if you're in motion,
it makes sense.
It's much easier to change direction than to get going, you know. So if you're sitting at home, there's endless ways you can make money, endless online, endless. Just start, just go, just do drop shipping or some other crap that you see advertised to you. Just get on with it, because you'll probably fail 99% of the time. But you'll learn so many lessons from doing that and understanding, and then to move on to the next, into the next, into the next, into the next thing. And again, I look at everything through the frame of fighting, and every fighter on the planet has failed more times than they have won. Every entrepreneur on the planet has failed more times than they have won. But that one win outweighs everything, right? So that's how you become better. You lose and you reevaluate and you work on it. So from joining the War Room and being exposed to so many different individuals, and this is 5 years back now, 4.5, 5 years ago, I just rapidly started working, and I have you know, a very, very, very strong and hard work ethic from fighting again. And I built up a few different companies, mainly online product sales that I started with, and I did one-on-one mentoring, and I'm about to launch an app, which is more of a, like, you know, I don't want to call it a confidence app because it's not very sexy, but it's like explaining to men how to take the steps that I have taken to become a better version of themselves. There's a better way to explain it, but it all starts with physical fitness and the fighter's journey. So it's like I'm trying to give the fighter's journey to anyone on the planet, because you don't have to step into a fight gym, and it's not about, this is what people get confused about. You said it, lineage, martial arts, story. It's not about combat. Like, the combat is the end part of it, and that's the like end result, and that's what everyone focuses on. Oh, did you win? Doesn't matter if you won, bro. That's not what it's about. It's about the journey of going through it, and the discipline and everything else. And like I said, when you go through the journey and you hit these points and you fail, and then you have to reconfigure it, and then you have to do it, that is building character. That is what character is. Character is losing and coming back. So that fighter's journey doesn't have to be in combat. It can be in any part of life. It can be anything that you're currently doing, even like music. When you learn how to play music, it's a character building exercise. That's what it is. So yeah, my app's going to be about basically fitness first, because fitness is measurable. It's something you can see. It's something that gives you confidence. It's something that you can understand. It's like all of the internal mental battles that you have to go through, and you can't quantify them the same way you can quantify your weight, how much you can bench, da 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 da. So if you have no confidence, you don't know how to build confidence, easiest way is go to the gym, start lifting weights, and I give you a program, and we start working together on that, and then we can transfer into the fighter's journey if you're more of a fighter, and I can give you breakdowns of how to do fight camps over 3 months, and we do something called triphasic training, which is where we focus on the different the 3 phases of preparation for a fight, which is where you're going to focus on power, endurance, and then speed. Yep. So as you get closer to fight night, you're in better shape because you're in more lean, speed, fast shape. We talk about communication, we talk about style, we talk about protecting value, we talk about a lot of different things.
That's great.
And basically all the lessons that I have learned through my journey. A guy called Rob Moore, I don't know if he's an English guy, so you maybe not heard of him, but he said if what works in life you should teach, and what doesn't work you should throw away. That's like something he said to me when it comes to like making money. If you know how to do something, teach it to other people and they'll pay for it if you're good at it, you know. So it's like, that's a very, very simple, basic idea. Sure. And Andrew always tells this story about how if you're good at making coffee, you can make money. I don't know if you've seen that. No. But he talks about, you're a barista and you're very good at being a barista. Then you start social media, you do videos about being a barista. And he goes over this whole thing, how you can then do seminars on being a barista and how instantly you've got money because you're good at something and you teach other people how to do it. So if you're good at something, whatever it is, whatever niche it is, you don't think with the power of the internet, you can make money from that niche. And, you know, my niche is a pretty big niche when it comes to young men and everything else. But that's kind of how I went through it. And I'm now working from that, and again, from the universe, and from speaking to the universe every single day, and from working my arse off. A lot of doors have started opening for me over the last 6 to 12 months. I'm in Miami to have a good time, but I'm also just met up with an executive producer of a movie that I'm going to make in Spain, which I've been working on, which kind of just fell into my lap because of the universe. A guy called Lee Kaplan, who's an Oscar award-winning director. He made Ali with Will Smith, and you know, a lot of other great things. He's got a school here, media and journalism school in FIU, the Florida International University. The building is named after him. He's one of my partners on my next project for this film that I'm going to be making. Nice. And that just happened again from projecting value in the right areas at the right time with the right people and speaking to the universe, and it just happening. And that's another, and I'm talking a lot, that's another thing I talk about, doing everything. If someone comes to me and they've got an idea, I'm just like, let's do it. Cool, that sounds cool. I want to do that. The first time it ever happened to me was, not the first, but one of the times that I remember is when I got a phone call on a Wednesday asking me if I wanted to fly to Moscow and commentate on a fighting event on the Saturday. I was like, yeah, sweet, okay, let's do it. How much am I going to get paid? Cool. You need to get your visa. You need to do this. And I had to leave my house, fly to London, get a visa, fly to Moscow, commentate. It sounds like not a big deal, but 25 people turned down the job. You know, I was not the first person to get the phone call. They turned it down because they didn't want to go to Moscow. They didn't know. I'm like, no, let's do it. And then I ended up commentating for the last 9 years with that show, and now I work for the largest MMA organization in Europe called Octagon MMA. They're out the Czech Republic. I'm their color commentator. I have been for the last 4 years, and that's like one of my passions. So I have a lot. I'm doing a lot of different things. And I know I'll probably fail a lot of these things, and in 10 years I'm maybe not going to do everything, but I have a lot of things going on because I'm putting a lot of energy into it and working very, very hard. And I think most people, they get stagnant because they have some sort of limiting belief over their life because their parents or their friends or whatever it is. And the war room, to be honest, with Andrew, when I got to see all these different types of people doing all these amazing different things, and I just got to ask them questions about it. It was such a moment for me to realize, and this is going to sound bad, but how's this guy making money and I'm not, because I'm way smarter than this guy? You know, how's this guy making? This guy's a dweeb. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. But it's because they're focused. They put energy in the right place. You know,
these are great points. I mean, there's so much to unpack there, and that's exactly the direction that I wanted to go with this conversation. I mean, you know, you got through a portion of your life. You were a fighter. You learned a lot from that, but you didn't just leave and then do nothing with your life, right? Like, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I'm sure you know a lot of guys that have walked away and are bums right now, okay, that are not doing anything with their lives. So it's great to see when a man walks away with honor and pride, and then he continues his life journey, building and motivating, inspiring, teaching. Those are all amazing characteristics of really what builds a man, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so I want to dive into a few things here. So we live in a world right now where I believe that manhood is very weak. Mm-hmm. I think that men in general are missing components like courage, like the ability to follow through, integrity, loyalty. I think a good bunch of that has been thrown in the water to sink. I don't see it where we have that vibrancy in our society overall with men. This is one of the reasons that I started Man of War. I mean, Man of War podcast it's a big podcast, but I mean, this is only a small portion of Man of War, right? We run major events throughout the South Latin America and here, and so there's a lot of things. We do a lot of consulting, and we have programs like that, like what you were talking about. But I've coached probably well over 10,000 men over the last 8 to 9 years. In law enforcement, I traveled the world teaching the military, police officers, security, all that, right? Through my journeys, what I started to find was that those men who really were really moving the needle in their life towards the right way, in the positive way, were men who actually found purpose once maybe that first season of their life kind of dissipated. But they found purpose. They found purpose maybe in family, in helping others, and teaching. And so a lot of men come to me now, and they're kind of sedated in their world. And they get to a point where they're so angry that they're spinning their wheels, not doing anything, because it's just doing the same thing over and over again without really getting a result. And they're spitting poison. You could start seeing that they transition into people that carry this resentment. Mm-hmm. So they may see you speak in a video and you fucking trigger them. So you're the Antichrist. And believe me, I get bombarded with that a lot. You're like, oh my goodness, like this guy. But those guys that are sitting there that are with this sense of resentment, this sense of anger, it's the weakness, it's the sheep, it's the herd mentality in the world that we live in. So I look at it and I'm saying, I'm looking at a young man like you. You've made the changes. You made the time to reinvent yourself, and you did not give up. And I'm sure that getting to where you are now, and I'm sure that you are still at a level where you're pushing forward for greatness, right? And so I sit here in front of you and I say, well, the young men, let's just say men between the ages of 20 and 40, okay? Men between 20 and 40. Why do you think that so many men are sedated? And don't get me wrong, my circles are high-level men. The conversations are very different. But the moment that I step out of that circle, it's like you're speaking a different language to a different type of atmosphere. Why are men sitting in these circles nowadays? What is your opinion on that? What's the reason that these men are just failing to grow, failing to take it to the next level, and then they become angry haters? And that's what we have brewing so much in our society.
I mean, you can look at it from a societal position, and you can talk about it in the way of government and everything else, filtering them. That's above my pay grade to talk about. But for me, when I talk about individuals that I speak to, many of the same men, and I think the number one thing is always fear, but it's because I don't know, and I can't think of it in Western America, but I feel like there used to be trials and tribulations as a young man that you would have to pass and you would have to go through, and you would be pushed into that. But the guise of safety has destroyed masculinity, because we are told by the world to be safe, to find comfort. Look for comfort. And this is the first time ever in history where comfort has been what people are after. You know, it's different if you live out in the wilderness and you're looking for comfort. Everyone lives incredible lives now, safe, comfortable lives. I'm talking about the West. There's lots of other places we could talk about. And they are being mothered to try and find security. And security is not what you want. It's the complete opposite. And what I would say for any man out there that's trying to achieve anything in life, just do the complete opposite of what you're told, and you'll probably be better off. Because like you said, I would say 90% of males now are weak, have weak mentality, break down, can't handle pressure, don't want pressure. This is the thing, they don't want to be leaders, they don't want to grow, they don't want to become better, and then they become angry. And you mentioned it I could talk about fighters, because again, fighting is my world. Again, I wasn't a world champion in the UFC. I had 9 fights, including the Ultimate Fighter. I did okay. For my personal development and my personal life, I outshot anything I would ever expect from me as an athlete. Because at school, I was not an athlete. I was not. Right. If you went back and spoke to the kids at school that I went, they would never ever imagine I would be in the UFC. I developed and I grew and I recreated myself, and I had to recreate myself again and again and again and again, and I have to continue. And you made a very, very valid point. I look at myself like nothing. You know, like I've not achieved anything. You bring me those parts, I've achieved nothing. Like I'm useless. Because the other side of you could be like, I was in the UFC. You see that? And obviously I have those 3 letters, and I can talk about it, and it gets me on a podcast and blah blah blah, but I can't rest on the fact that I got in a cage and fought a couple of times, you know.
I love that, resting on your laurels, man, and this is what so many men do.
And I'm in a group now, so there's this big thing going on, which I kind of disagree with, but it's very hard to say. I'm not going to say no to free money, but there's a lawsuit going on with the UFC. I don't know if you know anything about it. It's like an antitrust lawsuit. Everyone's saying the UFC didn't pay their fighters correctly, blah blah blah, and whatever. In my opinion, Dana White started a company, smashed it, put mixed martial arts on the map. Maybe he underpaid some people, maybe he whatever, but without him it doesn't exist. So I respect Dana so much. I think he's an incredible person, incredible businessman, everything else. I was in a group recently of all these people in this, and it's basically between 2010 and 2017, I think it is. If you fought in the UFC, you're going to get some free money because we should have got paid better. That's what they believe. Cool. For me, I joined the group because if someone's going to give me free money, I'll take the free money. I'm not going to say no. Right. I wasn't part of the lawsuit. I didn't stand up. I didn't do anything. But I'm in this group, and it is literally 600-700 men in there, maybe more, who fought in the UFC. So they're like already higher upper echelon of masculinity, if you want to call it that. I mean, they're cage fighters, so they've got something. They might not be the smartest individuals, but they're cage fighters. And all it is bitching and moaning and complaining and talking about Dana this and Dana that. I'm like, bro, focus on your own fucking life and do something. Like, it doesn't. The people that I look up to that were in the Chaels, the Dominics, they're not in that group. That group is full of the bitter people that think I got to the UFC and I worked my whole life and didn't get enough. It's like, bro, grow the fuck up, be a man, and move on, because you have 2 choices. You can bitch and moan, or you can work. Which choice you want to make? And there's only one that makes you better, and it's the work side. You know, I left the group. I had a bit of an argument with the guy who runs it, and I was like, I don't want to even absorb this energy.
Terrible negative energy.
I don't want to read this negative bullshit. Everyone should be fucking thrilled they're getting some money, not complaining that, oh, now Dana's going into boxing and he's going to... Who gives a fuck? It's got nothing to do with you. Let Dana do Dana. Dana's the man. Leave him alone. Focus on your own life. And that's the big problem with men today, is that they blame the exterior rather than... Like I said to you about the date thing, I was joking around or whatever, but they blame other people. People blame Dana for their lack of success. Are you fucking mental? It's not Dana's the man. He's living his life. You would be the same. And this is the thing that annoys me the most about these people. If they were given an ounce of the power and the presence that someone like Dana has, they would abuse it 10 times what he does. These haters and these people, that's why they're angry. You know, they're angry because they feel like they're getting used. Right. But they would use 10 times more, because otherwise... there's that phrase, again, we talk about haters on comments or whatever, but it's like a man doing more than you will never insult you. It's always the people below
That's
you
correct.
that insult up. I would never, it would never even enter my mind.
The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats, man.
There you go.
There you
That's
go.
better. You're more of a wordsmith than me, but it's like it's that personified in this group. It's like the guys that are killing it in life, they're not talking like that. It's the guys that are losers. The losers are doing it because they feel like they had their one chance. You don't have one chance. You have a million chances.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a million chances, and you can do whatever you want. And you said from 20 to 40. I think when you talk about young men, you need to be looking at 15 to 25, because once you get to 30, and for me, my big moment, I would say, is obviously when I got to the UFC, but like, I did that in about 22 months of turning professional as a fighter. So I would say 3 years. I always say in 3 years you can do anything with your life. You can do it quicker now because of the internet, but 3 years for me, you can do anything in your life if you really put your mind to it. And having that success, that first big success, like for me, that was a big success. Then it made me realize that it's down to me to make my successes happen. Sure. And I need to put in the work. And if I put in the work, I will become successful in X, Y, Z. Whatever I put my mind to, I know deep inside me that I will be successful at it. And that's what the young men lack. They never have that moment that makes them feel like they achieved. And I think, again, going back, I don't know what it would be, but some sort of trial that they have to go through at 16 or 17, and this is what it was for me for fighting. I'd have a fight at 18, 19, and I would give myself that pressure situation. Most people don't want to think, you're having a cage fight, you're crazy. Okay, but I'm doing something with my life. Sure. What are you doing? Going to university and getting a degree.
Sure.
Cool. I'm not shitting on people that go there and if you go get a first, and you get a first in law, and you're good on you. But if you just go there because everyone else is going there, and you don't know what to do with your life, and you've got no purpose, and you're just fucking drinking at the weekend, it's just a waste of time. And I think that's the problem with men, is they have no challenge in life. They have no reason. They have no purpose, like we said. And the way you find purpose is you put yourself in tough situations. That you said the family, teaching, all this comes from them seeing the future and understanding, like, okay, if I continue down this path, doing what I'm doing, being a bitter hater, my life is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. How do I get better? I go down this path where I have to challenge myself. I have to wake up. I have to think. I have to look at my life. I have to, all of these things that winners do automatically, that we don't even think about. We don't think it's something. They think it's hard, And I find, I always think, if you're a young man, if you're 15 to 25, just go to the gym. I know it sounds so basic, but just go to a fight gym, get beaten up. Oh, I'm going to get brain damage. No, you're not going to get brain damage. Just from you need to learn to defend yourself. You need to learn how to evaluate yourself. You need to learn how to be amongst other men. You need to learn all of these things. And the gym does the best for you. I'm sure there's like the military. I'm sure, I was never in the military. And I'm sure the military is the same thing. If you either have people that shine in the military and that don't. In gyms, it's the same. And if you go to a gym, all you got to do is show up every single day, get there early, leave late, do that for 6 months, and you're a completely different man. If you go to an MMA gym or a boxing gym or a kickboxing gym or a Thai boxing gym or a judo gym or anything 3 times a week for 6 months, and you show up 30 minutes early and you leave 30 minutes later than everyone else, and you have intention, which I think is the biggest problem. People just do things because they're told to do it. You have intention. You write down before your class what you want to do with that class. You write down after the class how you felt, and if you achieved it, you're a different man in 6 months. That's the basic, simple way to do it, because you're challenging yourself, and you're going to shit yourself. I told you, I used to drink beer before I went to my class because I was scared. The fear never leaves you. You're always scared. I trained with there's a guy called Atiba Gutierrez. He's a UFC guy now. He fought in Mexico a couple of weeks ago. I went to UFC PI and just grappled with him. I'm out of shape now. You know what I mean? I'm living a different life. And I was like, the guy's a monster. And you feel vulnerable. Yeah. But you have to get over that and get in there and get it done. I got there and I did a great job. Everything was good. Have a great experience. People have got this misconception about winners. They think winners, they don't feel the things that I feel. No, they do. They just ignore them and they get on with it anyway. They probably feel it more. When I lost to Mehmet Khalidov, I guarantee I was more depressed than any man that says they're clinically depressed.
Yeah.
I guarantee I was darker, deeper. I put myself on display. I was main event. My family were there. My wife's family were there. All my friends were there. I hadn't fought in the UK for 5 years. I was this big cage fighter, UFC, got knocked out in 21 seconds. It was like the most embarrassing, whatever. And I felt like I couldn't even look at anybody. Like I'd let them down. Like all these, whatever. And most people are depressed because of the things they don't do. Like they don't even try, so they're just sitting there on spinning yarn and doing nothing. Just go out and do something with your life, and it's very, very easy. This is the thing. Like now, it's easy to win because everyone else is just losers. It's so easy to win. It's like 10 times easier to win than it's ever been.
100%.
The internet changed the game.
Yeah.
If I had the internet when I was growing up, God knows where I'd be. And I'm fortunate. And I'll always say I'm fortunate. I'll always show gratitude. But I only get the opportunities. And people always say about like, oh, you're just doing well because you're friends with Andrew. Listen, Andrew's got a lot of friends. He doesn't invest in everyone. He invests in the people that do the work. I do the fucking work. So it's like one of those things that because I do the work and because I speak to the universe and because the universe likes me, it gives it to me, but it likes everybody. You just have to want.
Let me hold you right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal, right? So guys like, Andrew and guys that are a little bit higher caliber, guys that are, pushing, growing, progressing, they have a very tight inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And, from what you're saying is, he doesn't get around men who are not pushing and who are not, doing it a certain way, right? Low guys in the totem pole, guys who are just, whining and complaining are not going to be part of an inner circle like that, right? Right. Because I have my own inner circle and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, man, the conversation is very different when you speak to these men. Like the conversations that I have with my inner circle dudes, like it's just at a different caliber. It's hard for me to explain the language that is used while I'm speaking to and there's never fucking complaining. There's always about what are we going to do next, strategic shifts, how we're growing, and it's just but it's a relaxed environment because you trust one another. Because I know that this guy next to me, he is at this level. He is pushing, he is growing, he's inspiring, he's bringing forth the best in me. He will challenge me, right? And vice versa. So to have a group of men like that around you, that's gold. But a lot of men that are sitting on the outside looking in and saying, well, I can't get in there. Well, maybe you should put in the work. Maybe you should put in the time. Maybe you should go out there and instead of asking for things, maybe you should bring value to the table. I mean, that's how you fucking open the door, right? Yeah. They don't understand that language. You open the door because somebody brings you value. And it's not just one time. It's often enough where you can see that he is committed to trying to help the cause or to help you or to benefit you. And that's how that door is open. Because I'm sure that I'm just going to throw it out there, but you tell me, to get in a circle like his circle is not, you didn't just say, hey man, I just want to be your friend. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that he had to, you fought against him. You were there, even though you guys separated for a while, you were back in, right? You're a dude that's driven, that's hungry, that has ambition, that's, optimistic, has, you have, what's the word that I'm looking for? Optimism, okay? You have that. So, I don't know, you tell me, how did you get into that door?
Well, what I would say, probably the best thing about Andrew, like, they say never meet your heroes, right? I don't know if you've heard that, but never meet your heroes. I spoke about Chael earlier, so I'll mention him again. Like, never, the celebrities that you like, they're always going to disappoint you. Never meet your heroes, right? I met Chael. And I was the biggest Chael Sonnen fan on the planet. When I went on the Ultimate Fighter, I was first pick for his team. I knew every phrase and every word he'd ever said. When I met him, he blew my mind at like how much of a good person he was, and how he helped me more than you would ever expect, right?
Yeah.
So I will always look up to him forever. Andrew was my opponent, and he was a guy that I didn't look up to in any way, right? I never thought of this guy. He was a fantastic kickboxer, so I was like, this guy's fantastic. We used to train together. I was a good fighter too, so we had a bit of value from each other, right? Then, for some reason, and you say vibration or the universe or because I'm the best thing about Andrew is he is the most loyal man alive. And because he knew me from the past, when Andrew was broke, sleeping on his friend's sofa, I was paying for his train to come train with me. He didn't have a penny. We just sat down, and he could see I needed help. That was because he's been there, and any fighter listening to this, or any sportsman, not even a fighter, anyone retired from a professional sport, understands what it feels like to be lost. Understands like, okay, I can't do the thing that I fucking trained my whole life to do anymore. Yeah. What am I going to do with my life now? He's been there. He saw that I was in that situation. In no way did he owe me in any way. But in his mind, he's a loyal guy, and he whatever. So he sat me down and he gave it. But it was just a 2-hour talk that he gave me, or an hour talk of his time, because he was in Marbella having a good time. The next time I saw him was 9 months later, or maybe a year later. I had done the work. You know what I mean? It's not like there was no... to be a part of his circle, everyone, that took 3 years. It didn't just happen.
Right.
So I offered value to the War Room, which is his organization, for weeks and months and years, and gave up my whole life to it, to now be in that circle. It's not, oh, you used to be my friend, like one you cut. No, he gave me his time opportunity-wise, because he was in Marbella, I was in Marbella. We sat down, we had a chat. He gave me a fucking grilling. He wasn't nice to me. He wasn't like, oh, bro. He grilled me. Said, you just want to become a fucking loser like everyone else. You've got all of these things, da 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 da. It wasn't like, I make it sound nice when I talk about it. It wasn't nice. I went away feeling like shit.
So there's not like huggy shit, none of that, right?
No, none of that. And then, like I said, I worked my ass off, did the War Room thing, reinvented myself, everything else. And I'm trying to think the first time I came back for sparring. He just wanted to spar with it. So I ended up sparring with him. And then from sparring, and he could tell that you'd have to ask him more than ask me, but I put in the work, and he was being very, very, very helpful towards me. But yeah, the issue is that people, I had a phrase, but it's gone. People think that you come to, like, I would never come to Andrew with a problem. It's just, what this guy has got, and especially now, 5 years ago is different, but now he's got so much shit going on in his life. If you're an employee and you want to get into it, get your boss to respect you, you come to him with solutions, not with problems, right? So men who have problems are weak men. Men don't have problems, and I talk about this quite a lot, and maybe it's something I learned through osmosis, through Andrew or whatever, but if someone brings up a problem or complains, they just rip on them, but in a very, very horrible way. They're like, oh, it's this very, very tough environment, and they have this energy or this vibration or this ability to trying to think of an example. But if you sit there with them, you really think about what you say. You know what I mean? Don't just talk any other bullshit. You don't bring up bullshit. You don't talk about, oh, my wife was moaning.
No bullshit excuses.
None of that. Because they'll just look at you like, bro, what the fuck are you doing here? So it may, again, you evaluate, you think, you sit there and because you're never going to, like I said, you should never go to anyone with a problem. You should only ever go to them with a solution. So the only time I ever talked to Andrew is when I got solutions for his problems. I know I understand what's going on in his life. Yeah. I'm like, I can give you this. You want to sell that? I've got a buyer. Like, whatever I have, like you said, you add.
Sure.
So being part of a circle like that, people imagine that it's like you said, like huggy bullshit, and you all help each other with problems, but you never come with a problem to that group. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it. Yeah. I could never ever sit.
So it's not like you're helping broken men get their souls back, right? It's more, you don't even accept that in there.
No, it doesn't even accept it. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's not even.
You wouldn't even be. It just wouldn't happen. I can't. It's very, very hard to explain. I've never been asked this question, to be honest. How I got in the circle was just by being me and by working my ass off and working for him. Like I work for Andrew within his organization. I work very, very, very hard. I have the relationship. That's it. It's like if you have a relationship with someone who's successful, if you offer them over and over and over again results, and you offer them over and over again answers,
and you're loyal and
you're loyal and all the rest of it. And like I was saying, I was talking about how Chael outdid my expectations. I never looked. Everyone knows Andrew now, right? Andrew's like most famous guy or whatever, Googled guy a couple of years ago. I've known Andrew as a kickboxer, and I still see him as a kickboxer. I always say to him, why does anyone give a fuck about kickboxers' opinion? Like, you're just a kickboxer to be, but whatever. He's become this global superstar, and I never understood it. So when I was in the war room and because the war room's full of a lot of people that are like big fans of Andrew, and they would talk about it and was like, yeah, okay, I get it, but I never really understood why they cared so much, because I didn't consume the content, because I'm not a guy that really consumes content. I never watched the I can't remember what it's even called, his YouTube thing. I never watched it. I've watched more and more over the years, and he's a guy who only grew in my eyes. Like, he only became better. Like, to me, it was just a kickboxer. Then it was like, oh, this guy's... If you understood the amount of energy and effort and time that he puts into his life every day, when he talks about hard work, and he's an example of himself. Like, he just works every morning. I used to go to Romania when he was in Romania and stay at his house. He'd be up first, he'd go to bed last, he'd be on his laptop constantly, we'd throw a party at his house, there's 30 women there, he doesn't even leave the room, he's working, he doesn't care about distractions, doesn't care about anything, he's focused on what he wants to achieve, and he puts everything on the line, and the energy and the vibration, that's what I'm so fortunate to get. You mentioned it, like the conversations, it's nothing really to do about the conversation, it's more just to see it. To be able to feel it, like to see the...
It's visceral.
Yeah.
It's there. You can taste
like
it,
thick.
feel it. Yes, I get it.
You know, so we're all sitting around the table and tapping away on our laptops, working, because that's what men do, is work, and we're all working away, and most of the time we're just bullshitting, having fun, like making jokes, and then a topic will come up, and the knowledge, the brain power that these guys have, the way they talk, and the way Tristan even more than Andrew sometimes when he goes into deep history and talks about the politics that's happening right now, you sit there and you just listen. You don't even want to interrupt. It's an interesting place to be. But yeah, when it comes to being part of the circle, I'm fortunate to be there, and I think I'm there due to my fighting ability and the the friendship or the partnership, whatever you want to call it, from the past that he honored, because he does that for everybody. But like I'm saying, there's other people that are in the circle that don't offer value, and they're not in the circle anymore. It's one of those things. If you continue to offer the value and you continue to speak and you continue to help the situation, you're there. There's a lot of people I know that say Andrew's name that Andrew doesn't even talk to.
Sure.
You know, and I'm the one who gets upset, and I message him like, bro, you're not upset about this? And he's like, look, if I take a photo with someone, all of a sudden I'm their business partner. You know, that's how it is online, right? I'm like, okay, cool. But I get pissed off about it.
Right, right.
But yeah.
And give me an idea, just because I think nowadays men are so easily influenced by other men. Okay, what I mean by that is, going down this road, I believe that men fail miserably at they're just not discerning. They don't discern. They don't research information. They base their opinions on what other people say, and they're easily influenced, typically in a more negative manner than a positive manner. So, they're easily, once they get influenced in a negative manner, they make a hasty decision, and the next thing you know, they're going one way, and really the world is going the other. So a lot of these men that I see in this world, they are so influenced by what everybody else says, rather than they themselves. Like, you met, Andrew, direct contact with him, proximity to him, get to know someone, rather than you heard it through everybody else and how they think of him. So you're going to base your opinion based on what everybody else says. But that's how we live now. That's exactly how we live now. There's no such thing as proximity, like old school proximity. Let me shake your hands. Let me sit down. Let me talk to you. Let me see what you're about. Sure, people are screaming and yelling because maybe you offended that motherfucker because he needed to be offended. Maybe you triggered that fucker over there, right? Because he needed to be triggered because you said something personal that hurt him, that bothered him. But, talk to me about proximity in the world that you come from. I mean, even from a fighter's perspective, getting in the UFC and things like that, being close to people, shaking hands, having them see who you really were.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately disappeared now because the internet has changed so many things for the positive, but that's probably one of the most negative parts of it is unless you look someone in the eyes and you shake their hand and you talk to them, you can project a whole image of someone without even actually knowing who they are or talking to them face to face. You can think they're like, and people are trying to project those images, and most of the time people are trying to trick you and say there's something when they're not, right? And it's very easy when you meet someone, you go, okay, I know this guy can, I feel it. You can, you have that instinctual feeling by the way he carries himself, by whatever it is, right? And if someone's trying to talk about masculinity and they carry themselves in a masculine manner, it's obviously going to help. But you can carry yourself in a masculine manner on TV or on YouTube for 20 minutes. But when you meet someone, you see how they sit down, you see how they interact, you see the proximity, you feel that, like I said, the energy, right? I feel like naturally, I always talk about weigh-ins, right? So for like when we fight, we have to weigh in the day before and you cut weight and all that sort of stuff. That's like predators seeing who's going to be prey and who's going to be the predator, right? So it's, you have that, but you have that in every single interaction. I spoke about it at the coffee shop earlier. That guy was a fag. That guy that I could just tell he was talking to that woman, the way he was sat, the way I was like, this is not going to go well for this guy. I could just tell because as a man, when you're always looking out for danger,
situational awareness,
and people don't have that anymore. So I walk into a coffee shop, I evaluate every single man in that place, every single woman in that place, what's going on, where I want to sit. I always want to sit and make sure I can see the front door. But it's just automatic. I don't think about it, right? And that comes that ability is within us from generation after generation after generation after generation. So we have that feeling, that instinct. It's there, but we don't have it through the internet. You don't have it through the phone. You don't have it on Skype or whatever it was. I don't know, Google Meets or whatever it is, like on that sort of thing. You have it face to face, shaking hands, talking to somebody. And I think that energy, that vibration, you like, again, we talk about the proximity with Andrew, it's impossible to explain. It's impossible how you see it when you can see it a little bit on some of the podcasts when he sit there. And I made a joke with him. He just went on Patrick Bet David. And it was like Andrew just spoke for 4 hours. Patrick didn't say a word. And he said, every show I go on is my show. Like, he has dominance. Everything about him is dominant. So it's just how he acts, how he moves, how he talks. It's like an alpha male, which is what you're trying to become, right? So it's like, but the ideology of that in young men now is they're almost scared to speak out. They're scared to do that. They prefer to hide behind a screen and be that distance. I remember for a short time, me personally, when I was a fighter, I wasn't a business guy. I'm learning business, but making phone calls to me was quite intimidating because I'm so used to face to face. I'm so used to consequences as well. That's another thing that we talk about, because in my world, if you say something to me, I'm going to punch you in the face because we've always got, Right. And when you move in from the fight world to the business world, the amount of snakery and backstabbing and stealing deals, it blows my mind. You used to use the word integrity. Fighters are the most integral people alive, because if you're not, you get beaten up. So like the consequences there. Consequences completely removed from the world now. So people can be as snaky and horrible as they want. And I think fighters understand that more than anyone. Maybe military too. Again, when I say fighters, I kind of include military. But that transition for me from being a fighter to going into business, to find people that I can trust, it's so difficult. And if I know you've got a military background or if you've got a fighter's background, and I can sit there and I can look you in the eye and I can shake your hand, and I can sense it. And like with Andrew and the guys, you don't even have to think about it. You know what I mean? But I think if young men, again, it's so easy to win because young men are so weak. If you just want to be a man, and you just want to go knock on a door and do door-to-door sales. Like it's gonna be horrible. It's not gonna be fun. And that's actually the boys, Tristan. That's what Tristan used to do: knock on doors and sell windows. Yeah. That's why his communication skills are so good. That he carries himself so properly because he's reevaluating himself. Sure. So if you got out there, got there and started speaking to people, and having the balls to actually do something and not care if you fail. Again, we can even just talk about talking to women. And I don't think anyone should go up to a girl and talk to her on the street, whatever. But if you want to practice it, cool. I think that's a bit sad, and losers do that. But I'm just saying, like, having the balls to do those sort of things and fail, it really doesn't matter, And all those fears that build up in your mind, it's all in your mind. You've built up this thing in your mind, and you think it's going to go a certain way. I don't know if you've ever had a problem with someone. I had this with my mum recently. My mum had a problem with someone, and she was telling me the story about it, and she was going into big details about how this. I was like, have you spoke to her? So, oh no, I'll never speak to her about it. But she might not even have a problem. Yeah. And then my mum spoke to her, and everything was fine. It's like you build things up in your brain to this level of it, and you think about how he would think, and that would this 3D chess that you play in your mind about. You just ring the guy and go, hey bro, this is and be to the face, like up front to front. I got this problem. I can't do this. I can pay you in 2 weeks. Sorry, I did it. Sweet, no problem. You know, but they build it up so much. A young man, I think that's where the fear comes from. The not being able to confront it. There's a tale where they talk about this. It's like the dragon. I don't know if again, I'm terrible with my memory on these things, but there's like, if you have a baby dragon in your house and it's a problem, but you don't deal with it, and then it grows, and then you tell your mum like, oh, there's a dragon in my bedroom, and she goes, oh yeah, whatever, and then but you don't explain it, and then it grows, and then it grows, and it grows, and the dragon takes over the whole house and burns it down. It's like when you avoid a problem, the more you avoid the problem, the bigger it becomes in your mind. Yes. But it doesn't actually even exist. Yes. The dragon doesn't exist is the whole point, right? So the problem that you have is you. You are the problem. Yeah. You are always responsible. You are always the problem, and I think that's what men are missing now. I know I've gone like a big round when I was talking about it.
No, but it all makes sense.
But the proximity of they say that thing, real recognizes real. I always feel like, for example, I speak about Dana because of the UFC. I can text Dana for some reason. I've got his phone number for some reason. Not every fighter has got his phone number, and he'll respond because for some reason, on some level, I don't know what it is. We just connected. Same with Chael, right. Me and Chael, for some reason. Connected. I could go through a big UFC list, but it doesn't matter. And the same with Andrew. I hadn't seen Andrew in 5 or 6 years. He took 2 hours out of his day to speak to. Why? I'm nobody, you know. But because I project myself the right way, I work hard, I push, I try and do things. When you'll know this as well. When you're a mentor, or a sensei, or a coach, the students you want are the students that do what you say and like actually work. If you spend your time and your energy explaining something to somebody, they're like, cool, and they never do anything. Or
complain about it all the time. Oh, you know, oh.
I'm not that guy.
It's like you bring something to the table, and all of a sudden it's like you got this crew that see value in what you have, and you'll interview them and say, does this program or does this coaching have value? And they'll be like, yeah, it gives me so much value. And look what I've done. I've changed my life. And then you have the other crew that's like, oh, this sucks. I got nothing out of it because they didn't do shit about it.
They're probably the ones you gave it to for free as well.
Yeah, very well said. Yes,
because the people that they install value in things that they pay for, so that's another part of it. But it's like the people that complain are always it's always external complaining about themselves. Yeah. Like it's always projection 101. Oh, I didn't get anything out of this course.
Yeah.
Did you do it? Yeah. Did you? I got a school and I sell courses. It's funny. It's a crazy statistic, but one of my courses is a fighting course, and I think 92% don't even get to the 3rd video. They buy it because they get sold.
That is exactly, man.
And it's insane to me.
That is the way the flow. That is the flow.
And it's insane.
That is the flow.
But I was saying, like, as a mentor, again, I'm talking about Andrew now for being my mentor. He tells me something, I fucking do it. And I respond, and I check in with him, and I say, oh, I'm doing this. So I'm saying, like, when I had that conversation with him 6 years ago, I actioned it. Action solves everything. If you want to be useful, and so you're fortunate enough to have somebody in your life who is giving you advice, just fucking do it. Yeah. It's not hard. Just do it. Even if it sucks, even if it fails, even if it doesn't work, even whatever. It probably sucked and failed. It didn't work because of you. But then you go back to the guy and say, I did this, and this. And he goes, well, if you'd have done it this way, it would have worked. Same again in martial arts. You learn a submission. Yeah. Then I touch your hand that way, turn the wrist a little bit, and now it works because I know and you don't. But you have to go through the loss first to learn how to do it properly, because if you don't, it's never going to work. You have to have that feeling, you know, and that's what, again, martial arts.
So let me ask you something as we wind down here. Are you a spiritual man?
Definitely. Again, my mother's Jehovah's Witness, so she's an extremely religious woman. I don't believe in organized religion so much as churches and priests and people telling you how to read the scriptures and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mentioned the universe maybe 20 times on this podcast, and my belief maybe is a bit weird. I believe in God, and I believe every man is their own God, and what they put into the universe, they will receive. So I think that they always say that you were created in the likeness of God.
The image of God, yes.
The image of God, sorry. And I believe that you are God. I believe you are the God of your own universe, and you are the one that makes the universe turn, and it's up to you to put in the energy to make everything work. So that's when I say about talking to the universe. I speak to the universe every single day. I wake up every single day. I say 10 things that I want from the world every single day, but in the morning, at night, and I get them. Always. I have never not got it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's because that gives me intention every single day. It might take 5 years to get it. I'm not saying it happens like that. But so when you say spiritual, I believe in energy. I believe in vibration. I believe in the universe. But I believe in you get what you give kind of fashion. I don't believe in like spiritual. I know that word is so big, you know, but that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah. So last question here before we roll. You know, your life has, you know, you've had a tremendous amount of, you know, ups and downs, and you've had a great career, and you are headed in a direction right now where, you know, growth is in the horizon. Grow, surround yourself with great people. If you were to give just a piece of advice, you know, for any young man out there, for any man for that matter, that may be stuck in his life right now, that may be, you know, struggling. They're listening to this podcast or they're watching it, and they're like, man, you know, if like you said, if this guy did it, or if, you know, I did it, or whatever, man, I can do it. You know, what would be words of affirmation that you can give these men?
I mean, I'll speak forever when you say that question, but okay. It's a long list, and it depends on who you are, where you are in your life, your age, your financial situation, et cetera, and what you want to achieve. I would say dream a lot bigger than you do right now would be number one. Like, you can achieve anything you want with your life. If you really want it, you're going to do it. And I said it before, if your purpose outweighs your pain, then you'll do anything to achieve it. Yeah. And I always talk about weight cutting. I used to cut 27 pounds to make weight and think I was going to die. 27 pounds of water in 24 hours is a lot.
Damn.
But I did it because I wanted to win, right? Yeah. So finding your purpose in life should be number one. And the way you do that is you remove all distractions. And Andrew said this to me as well. I give up alcohol about 6 months ago. And he said, you've lived your life a certain way for 35 years. Why don't you try living it the other way? So you have such a rigid belief system on how you should live.
Yes.
Everyone does. And that is backed up by what? You need to evaluate everything. Your father told you, or school told you, or you need to evaluate everything. And maybe just try living the other way for a while. Doesn't mean you have to commit to it. You have to, like, just try. Just do something different. Again, depends on your financial situation, but I think living a different life for a while, if you're young, leaving home, moving to a new city on your own, relying 100% on yourself, making something happen. I said it earlier, something in motion is much easier to change direction than to get going. Getting going is always the hardest part. If you have no money, it's very, very easy in this world to make money. You just got to be willing to do it, to suffer, to suck, to you've got the internet, but just doing a paper round if you're a young kid, or asking to wash dishes at a restaurant, or working, you know, actual work, real work. It's very, very easy. I always talk about the real world, which is Andrew's platform online to teach you how to make wealth creation. There's 18 different methods. It's $50 a month. If you can't afford $50 a month, I'm sure you can make $50 a month by, like I said, doing a paper round, washing dishes, sweeping roads, cutting grass, whatever, and then just sign up to that, $50 a month, and then learn. Maybe you get nothing out of it. Maybe you get everything out of it. I think approaching life from a different, we call it a frame, like a different angle, a different outlook. That is the real secret, and not attaching yourself to anything. Not attaching yourself to being the UFC fighter that used to fight in a cage and tells you, oh, I used to be a UFC fighter. I mean, I do that, but I'm doing a lot of other things. It's like, you can't rest on something that you did before and think that the world owes you. The world doesn't owe you shit. You need to get out there, get on it, and reinvent yourself. I saw that video from you. Reinvent, I think it's a law of power, right? To be able to reinvent yourself. I have reinvented myself 50 times. I reinvent myself another 50 times. I'm about to become a Hollywood producer. I've never done that before. Right. Put on these glasses. Now I look like a Hollywood producer, you know? But it's having the ability to reinvent yourself as a man, going through trials and challenges is what matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very well said, man. Well, listen, where can people find you online? What are your main platforms?
I have Twitter. It's Luke Barnatt official. Instagram's probably my main one that I use. It's @Luke Barnatt. I've had it for forever. I've got a YouTube channel, which is @Luke Barnatt official. Everything's Luke Barnatt official. I have my own studio in Marbella, in Puerto Banús, which it's my office and my studio, and I have a podcast studio there. I work from there. I host like cigar evenings and events there as well. And we have a members club there, and we do loads of cool events. I did a Porsche event last week, and we do run loads of things, so people can come physically to the studio. I'm always there pretty much when I'm in the country. But yeah, they're the main socials, and I'm reigniting my YouTube and everything else because my studio burnt down. It's back now. So now it's back. You should see a lot more from me coming out. I've been living too much, and I've been a little bit lax on business when it comes to socials and everything else. So I'm going to reignite that for the next 5 years and really push it. So yeah, so that's where you can find me.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, we could sit here and chat for hours and hours because you're very. I love the way you speak, man. Direct, authentic. I covered so much, and I think you're very clear and concise in the way that you disseminate your message. So. I want to say, keep on doing what you're doing, man. Keep on changing lives. I'm sure a lot of people will resonate with your message, without a doubt. And more importantly, it's always about, serving for something greater than yourself. Something, who are you helping? What are you doing for this universe? So, stay on point, man. And thank you for being on. I appreciate you.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much. Cheers, Rafa.